This video has been brought to you by Coolmic. Use the code CrispyNats at checkout to get 50 free bonus tickets with your first purchase today. Head on over by clicking the link in the description or in the pinned comment. 2025 has been arguably one of the worst years of my life, but who gives a about me? What about the boys? Has BL Anime had one of the worst years of its life? Depends on the person. I would say we're having about the same year. But today we're gonna take a look at the top 10 best-selling BL manga of 2025 asterisk. More specifically, the top 10 publishing on today's sponsor, one of the few places left who'll be able to legally read BL manga on the internet, Coolmic! We'll go through the top 10, I'll share my thoughts on each as we go. At the end, I will re-rank the top 10 into what I personally think the top 10 order should be, and I'll give some of my personal Coolmic manga recs along the way. Segment times will be at the bottom to guide you through this whole process. Spoilers for everything, obviously, as we go through as well. As always, the beep-free and extended version of this video will be available on my Patreon linked in the description, and for anyone who becomes a channel member and clicks join. That's enough of a setup. Let's yap about yaoi!
You like it when I
You Who Wants to Love by Nanoka takes place in a Kimono Mimi secondary gender world, where people have animal ears and a tail and a hopefully covered prescription to heat-suppressing drugs. The story focuses on a man named Hayase and his higher-up Korono, who happen to encounter each other on the night of the full moon when their heat is in full drive, with Hayase, who's been claiming he's a dog, being revealed as a wolf, and Korono, who is suspected to be a black lab, revealed to be a 1/1 scale bunny boy by freeing. This one was just okay, very much not to my taste as someone who's not really a fan, personally, of Kimono Mimi characters. As I've said many times before, for me, it's gotta be all human or it's gotta be all fur. I don't really do in between. I thought both Hayase and Korono were likable characters. I didn't really have a preference for either of them, nor did I really dislike either of them. And I get the appeal of all of these different verses, not verses, although I very much with verses, is this narrative tool in order to make characters have basically two different personalities, the regular one and the hyped up version of themselves. But that conceptually is just something else that doesn't really appeal to me, hence why I'm not really a fan of any of the verses. I just personally prefer when a character is who they are all the time, or they're pathologically lying. Last thing is that the mouse boy was kind of cute. That's really the last and only positive thing I felt. I didn't love the two main characters' dynamic. I didn't hate it either. 6 out of 10. Ski! Theodora Stalambra is a sorcerer of incredible talent and an even more incredible skincare routine as a 500-year-old with a face like this. Having saved up all his quest money, Theo performs a seance to bring a maiden into his world, summoning a Joshi Hosei named Momo, but tagging along is her own niece-san, Umehiko. The siblings, confused by the situation, having somehow avoided isekai anime their entire lives, mercifully, attempt to return home, but Theo tries to prevent them from doing so, only managing to grab Umehiko in the process. Irritated but willing to settle, Theo places a spell on Umehiko, turning him into a, quote, blessed maiden, aka a rechargeable battery of magic that can only be obtained through f***ing. And thus begins the f***-filled day-to-day life of Theo and Umehiko, and f*** my life, is that a goblin?
I can't stand the stress!
Dear Sister overall is a hoot. It's just endlessly hilarious. The dynamic is priceless and Umehiko is hot. As many of you know, I generally used to be completely against any sort of Western fantasy setting in anime, but nowadays I'm very much more so open to it, also just because the oversaturation basically gives me no choice if I'm trying to watch more than like 3 things every season. Like I said, this shit is hilarious not only by way of the two's bickering, but also just the absurdity of things like the guards for the garden being tentacle plants. 10 out of 10, I might actually pick this one up on my own. Sugi! Shion and Rui are One day, while hitting on a bunch of women, Shion gets drugged by an unknown woman and turns into a woman. Rui finds Shion, hits on Shion, realizes it's Shion, and still smashes Shion even when he turns back into Shion. Some of you may recognize by My Best Friend from its anime adaptation, which is also available on Coolmic, which I personally have seen and did not love. I gave it a 4 out of 10. However, in manga form, it overall comes across generally more enjoyable, I would say. As a bi boy, I do generally enjoy gender swapping stories because it does give me the best of both worlds. But the anime for this was just something that never strongly appealed to me, even though series like Johnson Contract very much do. So in conclusion, I overall like the manga a little better than the anime. The art style just looked a little better. So overall, I'd probably actually give this a 7 out of 10. Sugi!
1,000 kisses from you.
Kyo is too f***ing clingy. Hashtag not my Kyo. Ren is also too f***ing clingy. Hashtag that's my Ren. After bonding at a club meeting over their shared aggressively unrelatable insufferability, the two make their way to Ren's place where he milks Kyo like the dairy zoo the next day, after which they start going out. Hashtag worst couple on campus. I am of two minds when it comes to loving too much is just right, and neither mine is Ren nor Kyo's. The first is that this is just not for me. The second is that this is low-key genius and wildly entertaining. I find clingy characters and people to be unappealing, unattractive, and very unlikable. So you have a story where both characters in the couple are effectively stalking each other, and as the socially anxious kids on the internet say, DNI. But that being said, this shit is so ridiculous at all times, I can't lie and say that I'm not entertained. Even if ultimately I am nowhere near the sparkles around each of them, the dramatics of how they talk, Kyo's stupid shy questions, the very obvious lemons in the bath at the onsen. Peak comedy, I will be giving it an 8 out of 10, but I will not be continuing. Sugi!
Let's get N-A-S-T-Y, get ready for a nasty time.
A photographer named Takamata arrives at a tofu shop one day to take photos for the shopping district, meeting a cute tofu boy named Yu in the process, who he decides to obliterate.
Exodia!
After tricking Yu into visiting his hotel room, Takamata goes with Yu to a meeting for the benefit of Yu's family's tofu shop, being a surprisingly helpful ally in the process, securing a business deal much to Yu's conflicted gratitude and chagrin. Before heading back to Yu's place with Yu to see photos of him playing baseball, and the out of him as Grandma climbs the stairs. The manga that I would say is the closest experience to hit on by a guy is Yu Watase's Sakuragari. Now, is it as complex and as deep as Sakuragari? My brain wants to say no, but my heart wants to say yes. The Sakuragari comparison, I can't lie, stems from the just general aesthetics of the couple in each story, while at the same time those aesthetics being not really identical. It's more so the presence of a cute guy being manipulated by a megalomaniac. In the broadest sense. The starkest contrast to Sakuragari is in the simple fact that this has much more hyperbole. Like, this in particular is just so funny because it's so dramatic and so ridiculous. As soon as Takamata saw Yu, he had a comically evil look on his face. Then the mother cries, saying Yu is not only grandfatherless, but fatherless. And then it all culminates with, sorry we had to give you my deceased father's clothes. All the comedic geniuses are publishing at Coolnick, apparently. Sakuragari, on the other hand, was so brutal I could cry. Now that I'm thinking about it, probably is due for a reread. I will say I very much enjoyed Hit On by a Guy. Yu is great. Takamata is insane. But I'm genuinely surprised this is in the top 10 best-selling of the year so far. Genuinely surprised. Not in a bad way, but genuinely surprised. Guest DM and Coolmick stands for My People. 9 out of 10. Sugi! I've already summarized Fukami in its anime form earlier this year in a whole dedicated video, so check that out for my opinions as well as to find out what it's all about. I personally had my issues with the Fukami anime, although I had net positive feelings, and a lot of them of course also exist in the manga to a degree, but I will give the manga credit for overall looking better, although I think the bodies in the anime were much better, as well as just making everything feel a lot more expressive. Kaji feels a lot more expressive and a lot more light, a lot more bouncy. In the anime, he just kind of came off just generally neutral, nice guy, particularly in his performance as being like the best guy and the most reliable guy at work. Generally, emotion from everyone comes off more expressive in the manga, so definitely points to it for that. Other than that, Fukami is Fukami, it's fine, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Sugi!
This is for the lover in you.
Friends Engaged is a disaster. Hayato and Jin are swindlers, but more importantly, they're childhood friends! They go apartment hunting for college in Tokyo, find a place for cheap after seducing the realtor office. The new landlady says they can't share a room unless they're newlyweds. The two lie they're a couple, except Hayato loves Jin and life goes on. Then the landlady, who's apparently a fujoshi with taste, tells them they don't gotta keep it down, go to Pound Town. So Jin, the alleged heterosexual, says let's pretend to have sex until it's no longer pretend. So now shit is complicated, especially since Hayato apparently is a former child actor, and because men are all idiots, these two have around for a second time to prove to their friends how they lied, except it wasn't a lie, it's a disaster. Friends Engaged is entertaining, enjoyable, stimulating, out of control, iconic, 10 out of 10 no notes. The art is great, the story is hilarious, the boys are hot, the is bountiful. It's yet another story where I wish in real life that I actually had a childhood friend to have a crush on. This being in the top 10 of the year makes sense. This only being in number 4 out of 10 doesn't. At least for me personally. But as history shows, I am often wrong on what should be popular. Sugi! Goes Gozu is basically Gato if he starred in a yaoi instead of a yaoi danme. After being unalived like Hikaru, he reincarnates mid-game in the story of his favorite childhood final boss, Evilogia, as the ass-in tasked with preventing Eve, as they call him, from entering any class-ass room like ever. Gozu, however, goes off script when the moment to kill Eve arrives and confesses despite being engulfed in flames. These flames, however, turn out to be a charm spell that causes Gozu to fall ill, with the only cure being fluids from the caster, since this is yaoi after all. Personally, Evilogia is still an Evinogia. It just is not for me. I don't hate it or even dislike it, I'm just like not drawn to literally any aspect of it. The one like outstanding negative I will say that I have for it though is the simple fact that sometimes it just comes off a little too preachy. At least the uncensored version of the manga contains everything, maybe even a surplus, of what the anime was missing. But it's not enough to turn me into a yaoi Sakai enthusiast, even though, as I said a few spots ago, there are very much exceptions to my no Western fantasy and isekai rule. 5 out of 10. Ski! Enter Shumei Sasaki. Finally free of Miyano, he's been monogamously it up as the uke he was destined to be with a hot named Ryohei. Except Ryohei, much like many of us towards Sasaki's original series, has clearly gotten bored of Sasaki. As Sasaki tries to reignite the flame with Ryohei, he finds himself by his friend in Kagehiro Omegaverse baby Yuki. Will Sasaki be able to get back on track with Ryohei? Unlikely. Will he begin anew with Yuki? Probably. Will Miyano accept him back after all this? Do two bottoms make a top? Now this is some I respect being ranked this high in the top 10. I won't say it was like above and beyond my expectations, but I would say it is generally on par with how far I'd hoped it would go. Story progress is fairly predictable, but not a negative. It's still young, although I am hopeful it could progress and fulfill my desires. I do know some spoilers. I won't say anything though, but cheating? I absolutely love cheating. Especially given the artistic similarities. Ryohei is a problem, but they call me a solution, so clearly we're meant to be. 10 out of 10. Sugi! Koichi Mizuki is the hot piece of captain of the basketball team. Did I mention he's fine? After his final game, he goes home and gets isekai to isekai by a hunky huge attack on List Titan, who tells him, we don't have Omegaverse physiology, but I'll alpha beta your gamma till ya.
Valkyrian, the Magna Warrior!
I have, as I said, seen the Titan's Bride anime. I thought it was just okay. Out of all the BL anime I've seen from Anime Festa, it is very much in middle place. The most notable thing about the anime, aside from how beloved it apparently is that despite being a BL anime, there are no to be found. So reading not just the manga, but the uncensored manga, I expected the most notable omission to be that which was completely missing in the anime. So yes, bottom line, there is in the uncensored Titan's Bride manga. The is no longer just scissoring. The art and the character designs in the anime were already great. In the manga, they're even a little bit better, I would personally say. But the story for me is the most notable improvement. For whatever reason, they cut and changed a lot of the intro from the manga in the anime. In the anime, we get a basketball game, then cut to Koichi at home looking at his signed basketball, then he gets transported. In the manga, we open with foreshadowing that I can't show on here unless I want my channel to be deleted, and then right to post-game showing Koichi get the basketball, revealing he's apparently a heartthrob, then most importantly, cut to his teammates where one bitter Bobby says it's not fair Koichi is talented, handsome, and yanking down his shorts in the process. The other major change is that in the manga, Koichi is in the middle of yanking his chain when he's transported to the other world. Clearly every was put on the chopping block. So sure, I could complain about these changes depriving me of Anna and I absolutely am. That's what I've been yapping about for the past few minutes. But they also cut off the comedic of the series, leaving it a lot less goofy, which is completely absurd to me because the premise already is. Overall, the manga is a noteworthy improvement. I don't even know how much I gave the anime, and I'm not gonna look it up. You can just check out my anime list, which is also linked in the description. And if you want to compare, the Titan's Bride anime is also available on Coolmix. Even I will admit that while it is not my favorite story, I did still very much enjoy it, and it still is very much hot. And I can definitely absolutely see why it's the best-selling BL manga on Coolmix of 2025. But it being in number 1, I'm gonna take 1 point off and give it a 9 out of 10. So before I rework this existing top 10 into the top 10 that I personally believe it should be, here are some of my personal Coolmix manga recommendations. In no particular order because none of them are best-selling, so who cares?
Put that kiss on me right there, wherever you want, baby.
Ninja loses a fight to a samurai and becomes his servant. It's adorable. Kagamaru needs that Senin Darashi!
Now let me see you get bucked night.
Another Tokusatsu work, I clearly have a type. Mr. Fujiyama has a scary face and a dozen cats. Taiga Minami works with Fujiyama and dotes on him daily. With a cover like this, I wonder what secret a character with the name Taiga could have. Recommend this for anybody eagerly anticipating Kimi to Koete Koi ni Naru. You're less of a dog person and more into cats, and you want the yaoi version as opposed to the yaoi dame.
Can we take it back to summer?
Hiromu and Ryuji are childhood friends! They finally make the basketball team, but Ryuji accidentally injures Hiromu. So Hiromu tells him to become his arm. Y'all know, because I've said it so many times in this video, I love childhood friends! Me and Kata are the same person! It's emotional, goofy, and for anyone who wants a Kuroko fix without Kuroko, but with the rainbow.
Yeah, my baby know that I deliver.
Takarai and Kaga are co-workers, with the latter having an unrequited crush on the former. Unrequited because Takarai is a shallow dunce with a bitch! After admitting he's a virgin and he keeps getting broken up with over his ginormous member, Kaga offers to be his first, and this hot mess of a relationship goes from there. Have I told y'all about my thing for delivery boys? What can Brown do for you in those tight-ass shorts? I have personally read enough gay comi involving that profession in those uniforms that they've become such an unintentional biological trigger that I ethically can never visit Japan. So I highly recommend for everyone with the same preconditioned
Try to resist, try to hide from my kids.
Kazuki hates teachers, so he tries to embarrass his new teacher, Mr. Miwa. However, Miwa is left unfazed by everything Kazuki attempts, further frustrating Kazuki. With one of Kazuki's attempts to embarrass Mr. Miwa backfiring and leading to Kazuki releasing his frustrations, as the two continue their one-sided adversarial relationship. I don't know when I'm No Match for Him began publishing, but it is clearly one of the many BL series that came out at the time when Free was at the peak of its popularity and derivative series were coming out left and right. Aesthetically, it's so Kisu, although clearly Kizuki is much more, I'm realizing now Kizuki and Kisumi, so that has to be f***ing intentional. But character-wise, Kizuki lines up much more so with Rin. Mr. Miwa is basically Sosuke and aesthetic only. Either way, it's an endlessly amusing read.
Bet on it, bet on it, bet on it, bet on it.
Because he's been skipping class to save up money for a present for a girl that doesn't even like him like a cop, Takamine begrudgingly agrees to do an experiment for his professor involving him living with another man, to prove if the Fujoshi law of and they were roommates is scientifically true. Nanokakan is an all-time favorite of mine. I actually own the physical copy in Japanese because, as I always say, I can't read it, but I don't need to read it. All I need is the vibe. But mercifully for context, I have Coolmic to get the translation. And this last rec is not BL, but I can't be doing a video on Coolmic and not shout out one of my all-time favorites. I am not explaining the plot because this is a BL video, but I will say, Wave Corporation, this needs to be the next big anime hit. This could be your next Fire in His fingertips with a PH on all of that. You already did an audio drama CD. The demand is there. If I could have any influence as an influencer, let it be on this. Okay, true top 10 time from 10 to 1. In my biased bisexual opinion. 10th place, Evalogia is still Evanogia. I don't know what about this series turns me off from it. Again, not in a negative way, in an apathetic way, but it just does. And like I said, it's probably not entirely the isekai aspect. There are plenty of isekai that I enjoy, like the Quartet. I just don't care, and in theory, I would rank it like lower than 10 and put like one of my other recommendations in. But that's not how this works. 9th place, You Who Wants to Love. +1 from its original rank of 10, but really, honestly, kind of by default. Like I said, I'm not a Kimono Mimi kind of girl. Although, unless we're talking about like going to produce a premium videos. Other than that, the characters didn't really interest me. The secondary trait just didn't interest me. Placing it higher just didn't interest me. 8th place, by My Best Friend. Same ranking as the best-selling, so I guess it's just objectively true. It somehow appealed to me more than the anime, but again, not enough to make it any higher on this ranking. 7th place, Loving Too Much Is Just Right. Another one in the same spot. It's abundantly entertaining. If it was an anime, I would actually entertain like watching a full 12 episode, 13 episode, maybe even 24 episode anime series of it. But on its own, as an ongoing manga, I just can't be bothered. 6, Unexpectedly Naughty Fukami, 1 rank down. Again, I talked about Fukami earlier this year. I don't feel a need to reiterate for the 3rd time at all. It's cool, it's hot. I don't completely love the plot. Top 5, 5th place, The Titan's Bride, less than 1, but still in the top half. Like I said, the manga surpasses the anime in a bunch of ways for me personally. Really, it's ranked so low because Koichi's teammate is not a recurring character. 4th, hit on by a guy. It's so much, but it's so for me. 2 spots above its official rank because I believe it deserves more. It's so absurd, but I also just cannot deny a baseball player. And Daya is back next year, guys! 3rd! The Sasamiya we deserve, but don't completely need. Gotta keep it humble by taking it down a rank. And for not making the story completely about my boyfriend Ryohei. But I do still love that shit, and honestly, I might pick it up after I finish Shippuden. By like 2030 at the rate I'm going. Top 2! Another entry up by 2. Friends Engaged. This one just scratches such a specific itch as I'm literally itching myself. And it's another one I'm definitely going to pick up after the fact. Like absolutely unquestionably. And number 1... Dear sister, I've become a blessed maiden. Umehiko! I usually don't have a thing for incubus succubus marks, like at all. I don't really find them attractive, but I think that goes to show how much otherwise this story is doing right by me. Hilarious, hot, uncensored, and up 7 ranks from 8 to 1 to round out the top 10. And of course, if you want to read any of these BL manga and so much more, like an impossible amount more, head to the link either in the description or in the pinned comment to head over to Coolmic today. And use the code CrispyNast to get 50 bonus tickets with your first purchase. Have you guys read any or all of these? How would your personal top 10 compare to mine in Coolmix? But most importantly, what is the most iconic Coolmic title you have ever encountered? For me, it has to be unquestionably, unmatchedly, Would You Kiss a Fly? I have no words, just feelings. So my consistent weekly uploads begin and end here. Next time y'all will see me will be in the middle of November for a special passion project of mine I've been wanting to work on all year. Let's see if it actually happens. Bye!